Okay, so I decided to go ahead and make a second class since I already made a first class going over basics of, with the Boken. I'm going to go ahead and make another class going over the basics of the Joe. So before we begin, Ariashmas, thank you. So the Joe is definitely a more complex weapon to pick up and grasp. A lot of people think, oh, it's just a stick, no big deal. Um, but the thing is that the Joe has two sides. And so you can use either side, and it's also very versatile as you can quickly go into various directions. So it is a very versatile weapon. It is considered the less lethal weapon, and note that I said less lethal. Joes can still be very dangerous, so always keep that in mind. Hit somebody in the head with this, it's going to hurt bad and it can potentially kill somebody. So always, always, always treat this with the same respect that you would treat a boken with the same, and you treat both with the same respect as if you had a live blade. Um, anyway, so to begin with, because the boken is considered a right-handed weapon, a lot of times you'll start with the left, or sorry, a lot of times you'll start with the Joe in the left hand. Um, it's not to say that I've started caught up with the Joe being in the right hand and being right on me. This is just how it's traditionally done. The other thing that is more or less very basic with the Joe is that I was taught you always hold the Joe in thirds. So if you're holding it in, I guess, well, if you're holding it in, I think this is Choku, um, or Jodan, um, you're gonna hold it like so in thirds. Or when you're going back, it's gonna be in thirds. You always hold the Joe in thirds, even if you're gonna do a block, it's in thirds. So, such as a base block like this, or a block like this, it's always held in thirds. So always keep that in mind. The grip is not as technical as in with a bow You just really just grab it. It's more natural. The biggest challenge is making sure that when you're doing certain strikes, you start those strikes with your hips and not with your arms. So with that said, I'll go over the first strike that most people are taught, which is the ski. So to start things off, and by the way, disclosure, I learned, um, I initially learned my weapons under a Lama style. So a lot of my weapons practices are going to look more Lamish. Joe and Boken vary drastically amongst the different schools. This is just how I would initially learned it. A lot of these basics stay true across various schools, so it's not like you'll be completely in the dark if you go to a different school and you're going, why does this look similar? It's because, it works across the board. So we're going to basically start here, and as you notice, I put tape down on my patio, and that's just to show you where I'm at on the line, because no matter what, you're going to go off the line a little bit. But you are going to, again, use your hips to help hold this up and readjust. So as I'm doing this, I'm actually using my hips to bring the Joe up. On the strike, you're going to bring it up, and as you open, you're going to open your hips a little bit more, and that's going to pull the Joe back. And then as you strike, you're going to shoot it forward. And again, it's all driven by the hips. So again, from the side here, I'm going to draw it up, pull it back as I'm opening my hips, and then come forward. So here, here, here. And again, you should try to be slightly off the line when you're doing this. It's no different than if you're doing if you're doing an Arimi open-handed. There are times when you will want to stay on the line, dominate, but a lot of times you're doing a deflection and you're going slightly off the line to attack. If you're on the line, it means you're initiating an attack. So being Aikido practice, basically not acting like you're initiating an attack because you're never supposed to. So for ski, this here is the motion. So, and note that I'm opening my hips, but I'm not turning my head. I've actually seen that happen a couple times where somebody will actually start doing the ski and they'll turn their head like so, and then they'll go forward. If you turn your head back, you're not looking at the person that's trying to hit you. So always keep your head forward. Don't look away. You want to keep it going forward. And if you notice, I'm also not doing a step. There is no stepping in terms of a ski, but do it a couple times. You'll understand why. It's clear. You're just already way off balance. There are times when you'll do a strike like that, but that's kind of going off topic. The way that the nuances with it, which you can't see when I'm back there, is when you're starting off the hand structure or with your hands, you'll notice that my front hand is palm up, my back hand is palm down. So you're opening up, it actually changes to where you're twisting it out a little bit. So as you can see with my hands, the palm that was palm up is now palm down, and I'm rotating them both. And it's really important that you get that action, because what you're trying to do is, if I had a line here, you'd probably see it better, but I'm trying to spin the Joe. It's actually going in a spiral. So you want to get that spiral. You want to get that torque. If you ever look at a karate punch, you see that spin, that torque on the spiral actually adds power. So that's why it's so imperative to do it that way. You're not striking like you're hitting a pool ball or pool ball. So in any case, that is the basics of the ski. So key things there: read me offline, use your hips, and make sure you actually open and close the hands, or rotate the hands to spiral that Joe. The next one, and these next two are actually just going to mimic kind of what I did the other day with the bokin. But that would be the Shomanuchi and the Yokomanuchi. So, but there are some, you can do some variants with it. The first thing is that the way I was taught, you're just practicing Saburi. As you bring it up, so you start right hamni, you bring it up, and then the Joe is flat. Now, you have a couple options with this one. You can come back and strike down, or you open up and strike down. So there are two types of entering with this. The one thing, again, big difference is that unlike a bokin where you're only about a fist width apart, again, you're on a third of the Joe. The other thing is, make sure you have enough room behind you, is that as you're doing this, you do want to, again, try to step offline. The basic kata is step back, step forward. And as you can see here, I'm going off the line a hair. If you do want to practice being the attacker, you can go straight through. But again, I think it's more important that you get in the habit of getting off the line than you are doing a straight attack. So you're on the line, you're off the line a hair. The second one, you're going to open the hips and you're going to strike down. So this one I think is a better exercise in terms of practicing for opening with your hips. But you're going to open up with your hips and then come down. Now the similarities between Shomanuchi with the bokin and Shomanuchi with the Joe is, as you can see here, I am keeping my arms extended. So you shouldn't be using your arms as much and shoulders as much as you think. A lot of what we're doing, again, is to open your hips and close your hips, and the hip action is what leads the Joe action. So it all transfers over. The other big thing, The other big thing that you want to make sure you're doing is, again, as a reiteration from the last time I recorded, was to make sure that your back is straight the whole time and that your knees are bent. So as you can see here, my knees are slightly bent and my back is straight the whole time. For saburi, you can practice going all the way back, all the way forward. And the habit of that is to get your arms above your head, or to make sure your arms are going above your head, to make sure you don't have the bad habit of ducking. So you want to, in terms of, you know, if you were doing a kata, you can go like that, or you can do that. With the Jo, it's usually a broader strike, so I have a tendency to do that. So that is Shomenuchi. The other distinctive thing, though, between Boken and Jo is that you can do Shomenuchi with the left hand. So, or it feels weirder. So it's good to practice. Sometimes what I'll do when I'm practicing Jo is I'll do this, switch, switch. So as you can see here, one of the more advanced practices is here, 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 here. A little bit easier to run the Jo when it's actually not as humid out, but that's the general gist, is to practice with going to both hands. Because there are some kata out there where you will have to do it left to right. The third basic attack, or basic strike, is Yokomanuchi. And again, very similar to what I taught with Boken, but it does have its slight variations as well. I have seen it two different ways, so I will try to show it two different ways. The first way is the way that we're mostly familiar with if you were practice with weapons. The second way is I learned it from Andy Saito Sensei, Andy Sato Sensei, and he does it slightly differently, and I also like it that way. So, anyway, so with the Yokomen, you're gonna, in the most basic sense, and actually I'm gonna take a step back on this. So, the block. A lot of people will start off Yokomanuchi with that type of an opening, even if they're here and they're just planning on doing the attack, so it's up here. Let's just go ahead and do the block as well. So blocks are, again, have some nuances. You're gonna go offline, you're gonna drop it down, you're gonna make sure that the Jo is above your head as best you can. As Kennedy Sensei likes to say, you're trying to be Wile E. Coyote, hiding behind that thin pole or that small tree. And so that's what you're kind of doing. You're trying to be Wile E. Coyote. So you're trying to stay behind this very, very small branch, and this is what's blocking you, protecting you. So you bring this up, and you try to make sure that it's covering a good part of your body. The other thing is you don't want this laying on your head, because all that shock that gets absorbed by the Jo is going to go into your head. So you want this out. And even though we always say try to keep it extended, obviously this is going to be one of those slight exceptions. The other thing that I find to be a pet peeve is you don't want to have your elbow up. You want to have your elbow down as much as possible. So it's not up here, it's down here. And that's a part for quickness. I also think that you don't want to have your elbow exposed. So when it's here, elbow is less exposed. When it's out here, it's way exposed. So that's the other little bit. So with that said, oh, and then the last little nuance, and people will get nailed on this all the time, do not grip it, you cradle it. So the second hand, you're cradling it, you're not gripping it. If you grip it, your hands are gonna get hit, or your finger's gonna get hit. So you cradle it, you might feel a little bit on your thumb or your finger, but it's better than your whole hand. So there is that little bit. And so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go offline, then you're gonna drop it down to a third, and as you step forward, you're going to finish your strike. So again, you're going to bring it up, you're going to drop it down, and then you're going to finish your strike. And then you're going to come back up again, and then you're going to finish your strike. And then you're going to switch your hands. So right hand, you're going to end up switching your hands more than the left. The left hand, you're actually keeping it still. So starting left-handed is actually easier because it's staying the same. right-handed, they make you, at least in the Aikikai style and Uwama style, they make you switch. So for Yoke Minuchi, you're going to come up, you're going to drop the hand down, and then as you step forward, you're going to strike, and then you're going to come back up and block, and then you're going to strike again, and then as you go back, you're going to see the switch. You saw the switch. You're going to switch your hands. And the way I normally do my switches, by the way, is I'll actually let my hands go entirely and keep that feeling. So all I'm doing is keeping the connection to the Joe. And as you can see, the Joe doesn't move much, but that's how I'm doing it. So, and it's good to practice this. Practice it as much as you can because the hand switches is very important. It not only teaches you how to better control the Joe, but it also teaches you a lot about a connection. So in this case, we're going to come up, block, and then strike. Then you're going to bring it up, block, and then strike, and then switch your hands, block, and then strike, switch your hands, strike, switch your hands, strike. So that is the first version of Yoke Minuchi. The second version of Yoke Minuchi, from what I can recall, so bear with me, is you're going to come up, you're going to block, you're going to switch your hands, you're going to block, and then you're going to come down. So it's a slightly different way, but you're going to come up, strike, and then when you switch your hands, here, here. And yes, this feels weird, which is why it looks clunkier with me, but again, that's how I can recall it. So you're going to, and then when you switch, because as you can see here, I'm starting right foot forward, right on knee, and so I'm striking like so, like I was holding a bokken. And when you switch to your left hand, you're going to switch with left hand forward, left on knee. And as you're doing this, you're going to do the same thing with your left hand. I need to practice this more, so I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. That's what was taught. You do need to practice. I do need to practice it more. I also need to practice more with my left-sided Shominuchi, but I think that's all of us. You're always going to have a harder time with your less dominant side. In my case, right-handed, therefore I'm more dominant with the right side. So anyway, so again, you're going to bring it up and cut down, switch, strike down, switch, strike down. And make sure you have a nice clean diagonal when you're doing your yokomins. You don't want to get it to the point where you are really going vertical, because that's Shominuchi, that's the wrong strike. And you also don't want to do that. They are legitimate strikes, but if you're trying to stick to more of a saburi, you want to have the V. In case you're wondering, yes, I have taught it where the Yokominuchi comes across to the side, but you need to do it diagonal first, so you know that basic movement, and then you can advance the steps. So those are the three very basic movements, or three very basic strikes. There is one other one, and this falls under the extreme advanced side of things, but I might as well go ahead and go over it with y'all. To be honest, I like to teach this purely because Sensei, if he's teaching a Joe class, he's going to teach this movement, and that's Haiso, right? So Yokomai. It is a very complex movement, and a lot of people have a very difficult time struggling. So even though I'm going to teach this, I'm going to break this down as best I can. I'm going to be straight up and honest with you all. Watch this, rewind it, watch it again, rewind it, watch it again. If you need even more, there's a couple videos out there of the 20 Joseph Brewery by Saito Sensei. He's the one that founded Uwama. He goes over the 20 Joseph Brewery. In the middle of it, he goes through a whole series related to Haiso. So I strongly recommend that you watch it. But Haiso is a very intricate technique. So just, again, you're going to want to go slow with this. So you're going to first pick the Joe up, and then you're going to swing it to your left. So again, I'm picking the Joe up, I'm swinging it to my left. Can you do it left-handed? Sure, you can. So pick it up, sway it to the left, and then as you're going to turn your hips back, you're going to bring this up vertical, and then you're going to strike down. So again, what you're trying to do here is you're going to pick it up, you're going to use your hips to snap it around. And also, on a side note, this is a good exercise. And no, I'm not using my arms. It's all in the hips. So you raise it up, use your hips to swing it around, and as you do that, you're going to turn your hips back, you're going to bring this vertical, you're going to step back and push down. Sorry, it's a little bit hard to do this slowly on the second part. So you're going to raise it up, you're going to bring it up, and as you're taking your step back and see, as I'm taking my step back and turning my hips, I'm going to cut it down straight, and then it's going to come up. I want to catch it here, and basically you want it either up around your collarbone or just resting on top of it, or resting right below it. So it's going to be around your collarbone when you bring it up. So again, you're going to raise it up, bring it here, basically strike or deflect, and then bring it out all the way. The reason why, or what the real purpose of this is that it's a deflection. So if somebody's coming in with a ski, you raise it up, you bring it up, and as you can see here, I started on the line, and now I'm slightly off the line. And that hip action that I'm doing is going to cause anything coming from here that strike down is also going out at an angle. So it's like basically it's here, it's here. See what happened to the Joe? It goes slightly offline. That's all it's doing. Your mind is going to sit there and think it's staying on the line the whole time. It's not. The rotation of your hips is what's causing it to go offline. So you're going to raise it up, swing, and then bring it up. So that is pretty much the last technique I kind of wanted to show. Again, it's a very, very difficult weapon to master. It's also a little bit harder to pick up on. It's perfectly fine if you have a hard time grasping with it. I honestly think that after a while, using the Joe is a lot more fun than using the Boken, partly because you can use both hands. And the other key thing is that, aside from, again, watching the 20 Joes Brewery, is figuring out combinations, figuring out different things to do. I mean, whenever I do my normal teachings, I will just wing it, or can't wing it per se, and just make up my own kata as I go along. But in order for you to do that, you have to get the basics down. So just again, the key things, I'm going to go do a quick recap. The first part, ski. Make sure you have that torque. Your hips are what's leading the strike, not your arms. And again, try practicing just going off the line a little bit. Sho Minuchi. I showed two versions. Step forward, or sorry, step back and then step forward. And then the other one, which again I think is better for the hips, is to step forward. And better for the hips, meaning that it helps train you to open and close your hips more. So there was that one. I showed two versions of Yoka Minuchi. So the first one, which is the hand change, right? And then the second one, where you don't really change your hands. I'm changing my hands in between each one, but I'm not changing my hands as part of the practice. And then the last one, the most complicated one, ISO, Yokomai. So again, practice those. Other little pointers, keep your back straight, keep your knees bent. And if you have the ability to, you can always take painter's tape, masking tape, put an X down. It just needs to be eyeball straight. You don't need to make it perfectly straight. And use that as your guide markers to see how far off the line you are. And that's also whenever you're doing any of your footwork. Um, because you, again, you don't want to be way off the line. You only want to be slightly off the line. So anyway, that was pretty much all I had planned for tonight. Um, you know, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to bow out now. And thank you for watching. And thank you again for watching.